Hi everyone, welcome to TriEssence martial art channel, a new mini-series which is called Internal in a Nutshell, and this is the first episode. We're going to talk about the one test that you can do to see if you're really doing internal. So just a quick reason why I'm creating this new mini-series is because it seems that people in general have problem consuming information from a longer video, so I decided to take my previous video on the 4 fundamental forces and chop them into more smaller pieces so that it's easier for people to understand, especially those that has not a deep understanding to Chinese internal martial arts, which is why it's going to be internal in a nutshell. So today we're going to talk about the one single test that you can very easily do to test if you are doing genuine internal, or to see if your teacher is capable of teaching genuine internal Chinese martial art. So obviously internal martial arts is a section of Chinese traditional martial arts as opposed to external. The problem with internal is that it's very vague and confusing. It's the one part of Chinese martial art that has the most flaws. Okay, external martial arts, there are a lot of flaws too, right? Don't get me wrong. But it's harder to be a fraud in external martial art because either you can kick high or you can't. Either you have muscle and you can punch hard, or you can't. So there are more visible measurements when it comes to external martial art, right? Did you condition your fist? Can you hit a wall, punch a rock, do whatever? Not saying those things are good indicators, but at least you can see if the instructor actually doing training himself. Has he gone through the training? Is he still training? For internal, on the other hand, it's very, very hard to see. Most of the time you find these people who are super lazy, fat, sit on the ass all day on the sofa watching TV, and then they pretend they are master. Now, I have nothing against fat people, okay? If somebody is overweight due to medical reasons, dietary, genetic, whatever, that's fine. But it's not cool if someone is a martial art teacher and he is fat or overweighted due to a lack of exercise. Because that just shows negligence to his own craft or whatever he's trying to sell to people, okay? So internal martial arts, when they're fat, they're gonna say, this is all qi. I have core power, dantian. There's a lot of ways to cover up the lack of actual skill in internal martial art, which is why there are more charlatans and flaws in the internal martial art community. Also, the whole idea of internal is very vague. It's like qi, intent, mind over matter. So the Star Wars, the Force. It's that kind of stuff that they peddle to geeks and nerds who believe in some kind of superpower, but in reality, and believe that they don't have to be hit in the face, to sweat, to suffer through cardio in order to defend themselves or win a fight. They want to learn a magic formula that just because they can stand like for 5 minutes a day, do some magical healing breathing exercise, and then one day when somebody bullies them on the street, they're gonna just hold out their hand and the guy will fly back like Darth Vader did to the rebellion on that ship. That is not going to happen. And therefore, it is very convolutional in the internal martial community, right? Most of the people that internal I've spoken to have no idea what actually constitutes internal and what they actually are doing. Most of the time, you get told, you do the sitting or standing breathing exercise, you breathe, you inhale, exhale.
Breathing out as the hands come down the center. Breathing in, hands coming up and around. Breathing out, hands coming down the center.
You're going to feel like a warmth in your dantian. Your dantian qi going to accumulate gradually, and through 10 years, you accumulate enough qi, will become the magical force, and then that day when you touch somebody, it's going to fly 5-10 meters away.
Always remember, your focus determines your reality. Stay close to me, and you'll be safe.
Master, sir. I heard Yoda talking about midichlorians. I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
Midichlorians are a microscopic life form that resides within all living cells.
Right? I'm sure this is a familiar type of standing proposition that you get from learning internal. But yeah, it's basically a miracle cure that this will solve your problem. And and the thing is, the reason these things are popular is because it appeals to people who are lazy and don't want to go through the hardship. And also because there's no way to measure it, right? If I tell you you're gonna do the stance every day, you're gonna accumulate chi in your stomach, you're gonna feel warmth. How you measure that whether you're actually getting this somewhere? If I say the first year all you have to do is this, and and then only after that you can get something. And during this whole training, if you ask me, how come I can't punch somebody hard? I would say, that's not normal. It's just part of the process. You haven't accumulated enough chi. You ask me how come I can't do this? I say it's normal because you haven't accumulated enough chi. See, it's like it's designed in such a system that you can't verify if you're actually making progress, right? And by the time a year, 2 years, 3 years pass, and you realize you still haven't got progress, either there's two possibilities. Either you still choose to believe me, maybe you haven't done enough, and you already spent 3 years, so let's spend some more, right? What if I'm just that little bit off from the goal? So I've actually known people who spent 10 years doing internal, doing the same kind of rubbish, and in the end of 10 years training, hasn't got anything to show for it. And that's pretty bad. Or otherwise, after 3 years or 2 years or however long, they realize they haven't got anywhere, and they'll turn around and go join an MMA club, and then say, internal martial arts are fake. Right? Those are usually the two outcomes. And both are not good for the development and spreading of real internal martial arts. That's why today we're going to talk about the one test that you can do to see if you are learning real internal martial arts. Now, before you jump into conclusion, this test is not about how much chi you have, it's not about how much mystical power or force you have.
Obi-Wan,
Yes, Master.
I need an analysis of this blood sample I'm sending you.
Wait a minute.
I need a midichlorian count.
The reading is off the chart.
It's a very simple biomechanic observation. And when I talk about biomechanics, then somebody might say, no, but that's not internal. Internal is about chi and energy and the mind and chakra, getting energy from the universe. If you still believe that, then quite frankly, you haven't been frauded enough. You can go back to your charlatan teacher and pay him more money, or rather waste more money, throw away more money and time. Maybe 10 years later, you come back to the video, and then you realize, I'm actually telling the truth. But for the rest of you who already been frauded in the past, or you have a skeptical and scientific mind, then you should pay attention to what I'm going to say. Now, this test can be done regardless of any lineage or background of Chinese internal martial art. As long as you're doing internal, you should be able to pass this test. If you don't, then either you're not doing internal, or the internal you are doing is non-authentic, fake, and impractical. Okay? Even though this motion itself that I use comes from chain-style Taiji, but you don't have to be a chain-style Taiji practitioner to be able to do this test. So then this test that I'm talking about now is basically to test to see if your shoulder joint is open. Now, opening of shoulder, hips, and waist is one of the most fundamental criteria for anyone doing any type of Chinese internal martial art. I can say for certain, if someone has not opened his shoulder, he's not doing internal Chinese martial arts. Now, of course, there might be a few rare cases where he has other qualities, like opening the hips, opening the waist, and compression, expansion, all those other forces. There are cases where people, maybe he just didn't open his shoulder. But those cases are super, super rare. The chance of you learning from one of them is far less than you learning from someone who just doesn't know what internal is all about. And because opening the shoulder is the easiest one to see and test, which is why it's the best test you can do. Even though, like I said, not everyone that does real internal has this, but I would say 99% of them should have. So using this as a test will be pretty safe in most of the time. So without any further ado, let's get to the test. So the test is quite simple. You want to stand in a horse stance, and you want to hold your arm out here, about 90 degrees angle to your body. So you don't hold it here, you don't hold it there, you don't hold it anywhere else. You hold it in front of you, shoulder height, 90 degrees to your body. Okay. And once you set up like this, you have the other person at this time of similar body height and physique, right? You don't do it to a children, to a kid. You're obviously going to overpower them. That's not effective. And don't do it to somebody who weighs 200 pounds because, then no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to overpower them unless you have a much higher level of training. The point is, you have somebody of similar height who comes and push one arm on the elbow here, one arm on the wrist. Okay, and then just ask you to push that way. So pushing your arm this way, and give you a constant force. Okay, go. More. And from here, you start to realize that your shoulder will straight up. And you want to try to push him back, right? So you push against me, and I'm going to push against him. And from here, if you do it correctly, you will feel that your shoulder start to straight up. And no matter how much power you try to use your body, because of this bad positioning of the shoulder joints, the power does not come through efficiently to him. It's almost like a dead angle. That wherever my body and my leg are trying to push into him, push right, it's not going to work. Okay. And that's step one. First, get a friend and do this, and then notice how it stresses the shoulder. Now, step two, if you know proper internal training and what opening of the shoulder means, then given the same condition where he's pushing, you're going to adjust your shoulders, keep pushing, to a point where when you do it correctly, you'll feel that the stress on your shoulder goes away. And up to this point, when I try to repel him with the rest of my body, he gets pushed back. Now, obviously, you can fake this test, but just remember that if you're faking this test, you are lying to yourself. You're not lying to anybody else. You know, at the end of the day, either you kept real internal mechanics or you don't. So there's no reason you would want to fake this. Okay. So to not fake it, you got to make sure that first you understand what the stress in the shoulder, keep pushing, feels like. And then if you can adjust your shoulder in such a way that you don't feel the stress in the shoulder anymore, and you can overpower him given the fact that you are of similar build and weight, and you can still overpower him. And clearly, before you make the adjustment, you can't overpower him, no matter how much force you try. When you meet all these requirements, then you know that you've passed this test, and then you know you are doing genuine internal. And even if you are not, let's say you are a beginner, you haven't gone this far, even though this is actually a basic training, but let's assume you haven't gone this far, then you can use the excuse to test this on your master, right? On your teacher. Ask him to hold his hand up that way, and you apply this and see if he can overpower you. And when doing so, do keep in mind of your physique, the difference, right? If you are a lot less weighted than the master, like he's like a fat guy and you're like a skinny guy, then that's not a fair test. You kind of have to, if that's the case, it's very difficult. You have to find someone of similar build to actually test your teacher, which is problematic. But the point is, unless he completely outweighs you and outpowers you with massive arms, then you can use this test to see if your teacher actually kept his quality. And if he doesn't, then red flag. Chances are he is not a genuine internal practitioner, and if you continue learning with him, you will not be able to learn real internal martial art. You could waste 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, and in the end, regret your decision and regret not believing what I'm telling you in this video right now. On the receiving end, what do you feel when I do the difference?
It's almost like try to scoop up water with your fingers and with a cup, basically.
Elaborate?
Okay, alright. So basically, you can imagine you pushing me back, right?
Yes.
You're pushing back, the force being water.
Okay.
Now, how do you deal with a body of water? You can either hold it with your fingers and try to contain it and it slips through.
Okay.
Or you can take a glass and scoop it up, basically. So when you don't extend your shoulder, right, it's up, I've got a glass on my hand.
Okay.
And the force that you're applying to me, right, it's a lot easier because I've got a glass. And and when your shoulder is extended, it's almost like trying to scoop water with your fingers.
Okay.
So it's just everywhere.
I see.
So that's what it is. That's how I feel.
So if you're on the testing side, you can feel visible difference between the two modes.
Yes and no. Only if you know how to put it in words.
Yeah, but if you don't, does the forces feel stronger?
Yeah, it does. It moves you easier. Let's just say that the stroke of force is not stronger. They're around about the same. Actually, the one that you don't extend your shoulder feels a lot more impactful.
Yeah.
It feels a lot stronger.
Yes, because I'm tensed up and trying to really hard to overpower him.
I can feel it more on my hands.
Yes.
So contrary, the one without shoulder extension or the internal power, right, feels a lot stronger.
Yes.
But a lot easier to contain.
But the quality changes, right?
It does, but you
kind of have to know what it is.
Yeah, you kind of have to feel it. You kind of have to like close your eyes and abandon all your senses, basically.
Yeah. So the point is that even your friend can tell you whether you're just overpowering them or you actually are using an internal mechanic. Okay. And obviously the whole water thing is a little abstract, but what really happened is that shoulder is a weak joint. When you put it 90 degrees, you're basically putting it in its worst position other than this. This is worse. Okay, but 90 degrees is a bad angle, which is why in most type of structured Chinese martial art, you don't want the hand to be here. You want it to be outwards, like in Yi Quan. You hold your stance like this so that it is in a better angle to withstand any type of impact. Which is why we put it in this one. We put it in the back position to actually test whether you can position your shoulder in a different way, i.e. opening of shoulder or extension of your shoulder to a point where this joint is no longer locked up by the bad angle, and therefore, with the same amount of power you have on the rest of your body, you're able to pass them through to the arm rather than getting them stuck here on the shoulder. So that's actually the biomechanics side of what happened. You're basically changing the angle of your shoulder to a better position, and therefore removing the weakness of the shoulder joint by its own skeletal design. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's all.
Alright, so that's it for today on the test you can do to see if you're really doing internal. I really hope that this video will be able to help you, especially those that are doing internal and those who are thinking about doing internal. Because believe me, I've been there myself. Doing internal is like going to the desert without a map. You don't know where you go. You don't know what you're looking for. Anything that you see seems to be appealing. Well, not in the desert, but the analogy, maybe like in the forest. You're looking for a specific tree, but every tree you see looks appealing. You don't know what tree is the one that you are looking for. I've been there myself. I spent years searching for genuine lineage and master. So it's very, very hard. So I hope that this video will be able to be like a guiding light, or a light tower that can help you find a direction in this very convoluted community that is Chinese internal martial art. And if you follow this precisely, you should be able to tell who is teaching real internal martial art and who isn't. So later on, when you're familiar with this concept, you can see it in everyone that does internal. Which is why if you're not certain about your teacher or someone that you might want to learn from, you always feel free to message me, send me a link of the video, and I'll be able to tell you if they have open shoulder or not. And chances are, if they don't have open shoulder, they're not worth going and wasting your money at. Alright, so hopefully you find this video interesting. I hope this video can help you, those especially want to look and learn internal martial arts. And if you find this video helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon so that my next video you get an update and you can see it as soon as possible. And also, if you'd like to support me on Patreon, that would be greatly appreciated. And not only does it help me financially, also let me know that there are people out there who appreciate the information that I'm sharing, which I believe is very rare, not only on YouTube, but even in China, in the Chinese martial art community in China, this information are not that accessible to general public. And as always, I'd like to give a shout out to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. Always feel free to contact me whenever you have any question or any suggestion for future content or question for current content. And when you become a Patreon supporter, you have access to a whole array of exclusive Patreon videos that I made, which further explains the internal mechanics of the 4 fundamental forces, as well as other videos like how to apply the 4 forces to various e-trend practice. There's a lot of these videos and information on Patreon channel for my Patreon supporters. So if you're interested in those,